Let me lay out for you what today's going to look like. As I said earlier, Sarah is on with me today, and we have a guest host that will be jumping on in a few minutes too. We've got somebody, a good friend of mine from a very long time ago, who's going to tell you about a lot about how they are using their church at his, or how they're using CHURCH.tech at his church. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited about that, so you can see like real time what's going on there. But what I wanted to do today, so the last time we did a training days, we had we were talking about this thing, and I started saying the 9-day work week, blah 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 blah, because I'm just so used to this group, and I forgot that new people enter this group all the time. And somebody wrote in the chat, was like, what are you talking about with the 9-day work week, and what are you talking about with this, and I don't really know this, hey, can you tell me this? And I started to realize we probably need to go back to the basics a little bit today, and we probably need to talk a little bit about how to not necessarily even get started, but like remind everybody of the things that you can do in the beginning with CHURCH.tech, just so that from there it's like a launch pad for all the things that you can do. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna pull out the 9-day work week. We're gonna work through that, and I'm gonna talk you through a workflow on that. I'm going to give you one real life example from a good friend of mine this past week, who called me on Friday and said, hey, I need help coming up with a conclusion to my message. Can you help me with that? And then I'm going to tell you how we did that, what it came up with. And then John Kelly, who's been a friend of mine, he was in my wedding, y'all. So like he knew me when I had hair, crazy. John Kelly is going to come on for a little bit, and we're going to interview him on what's the 5 like kind of top things that his church uses CHURCH.tech for every single week. And then we're going to let you all ask questions, and we will be out. Okay. So that's the plan. And really want to leave time for questions. You know, this group is like, I do best in dialogue. So let's go with it. But the first thing I definitely want to do is pull out the 9-day work week and just get you guys a look at that. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen, which always, like, my wife always goes, oh, now everybody's looking at my picture. Sorry, it's just what it is. Let me grab up the 9-day work week, and I'm going to pull this in. Okay, y'all, this is how my brain works. For those of you who have not seen this or have me work through this, this is how my brain works. And I want to apologize for how my brain works, because it's scary up there, but this is how it works. Okay. So what I want to do when we were coming up with ideas on how do we lay different things out for what are ways that we could help the church? This is the whole purpose of CHURCH.tech, is not just go, hey, cool technology. That's real. But if it doesn't help you get in front of people more often because you're not behind a computer as often, because you've got tools to help you speed that stuff up, then we didn't do our job right. So this is how we went about that. Okay. We break ministry into 4 phases, and we do it over 9 days. We would say that a typical ministry week starts on Monday and ends a week from Wednesday. Okay. Now, during that time, there's obviously an overlap where the next one starts while the last one isn't quite finished yet, right? And so we have to think through that. If you started on the first Monday, we've got a phase called the prep phase. Okay. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, prepping my message. Maybe I have an outline. Maybe I don't even have an outline. Maybe I've got a general idea of what I want to do, and I know what scripture I want to use, and I kind of know how I want to, like, what's the main point of the message. Maybe there's that much that I want to put in there. Well, when you can come to the platform, we're going to do this in a minute, and you can upload that onto the platform, and from there you can use some tools to help you build out your message for the weekend. The amount of times that Josh, Sarah, myself, as we're working with people through this, where they think that all that CHURCH.tech does is from here forward, once I've preached the message, I would say the lion's share of our tools happen before the message is even preached. Okay. There are a ton of resources on there for you to help do that. And I've got a bunch of them listed. And when I do the updated piece, you're going to see more of them listed. I just have to figure out how to get them all to fit on this graph. I'm trying to figure that out. But like, so we've uploaded an outline. We've got a couple little pieces to it, but I need some illustrations. Okay, let's just assume that if you're old school and you're putting together a message, you're going to get on the internet, you're going to look up different illustrations or stories or ways to tell a story, things like that. Well, now you can just go into CHURCH.tech, and there's a playground prompt, a save prompt on playground, that will say, give me 10 illustration ideas that would help my message based out of history, business, or sports. Okay, and so it's going to give you 10 ideas of like ways that you can take what you're trying to talk about, and it'll say, here's 10 ideas that you could use. And then if you like one of those, You can say, hey, this is good, build that out, and it will, and say, and tell it like a story. You can even say, I may use it as my introduction. You can do that, and it will write it out for you in a storyteller like format. So you have that. Now you get to go in and edit that. Like we've always said with Church.tech, everything that we do is intended to get you 90% there, and you are the final filter because you know how you speak, you know how your congregation would react. Okay. And so, but it'll give you a chunk to work with, and you can go, wow, that's really helpful. If you're working on a certain scriptural like passage and you want to know more about it, you can go into your ministry tool and you can go into a New Testament word study or an Old Testament word study, put that in there, and it'll do a full study on that entire segment. If you want to pull out a certain word in that segment, it'll let you know what key phrases are in there, and so you can do all of that and get more content knowledge in that space. Okay, let's say you're going to use, I know I'm going to use this core scripture as what I'm doing, but I want to get some supporting passages that might help me take things down a little further. I can do that. Well, there's a whole parallel passage search where I'm going to teach on this scripture, but here's a parallel passage. Here's like 10 more scriptures that might help support where I'm going with this message. Things like that are there in the prep phase. They're there for you to be able to think, how would I get this going? How would I get this to work? There's also things like sermon action steps, okay? Where it says, like let's say I know that my church is heavily young adults, okay, or we've got young singles, or we've got young families, young kids. It'll give you action steps where it'll lay out, hey, maybe a next step after this message would be for people in this demographic to do these three things. And that's really for you as you're writing a message, just to kind of spur some ideas on for you about, oh, that's a good idea. You can also do the same thing with where they are across their like spiritual maturity spectrum. Maybe they're a fully devoted follower of Jesus, been doing this a long time. They might want to do these steps. Maybe they're kicking the tires on Christianity and they don't have any idea what we're talking about. Here's some steps for them. And so it'll help lay those things out for you and help you to inform what you're teaching on so that you can have more things and just more meat on that message. Okay. So the goal is we've gone from an outline to having like a rough draft. And typically in a rough draft, you then have to refine the rough draft. We've got a lot of content, but now we got to trim it down. Okay. Maybe we even have too much content. We've got to trim it down. Well, then we've got some analyzers in there, like the logic and flow analyzer, which you would go and run and say, all right, what makes sense in my brain? My wife tells me this all the time. What makes sense in my brain may not make sense in their ears. Okay. Like in there, and it made total sense to me. What are you talking about? But Jenna will be like, I don't think that makes any sense. And okay, I'll let me say it differently. So there is an entire like analyzer that would say, hey, what you're saying may not be what they're hearing. You might want to say it this way. Think about it this way. Think about it this way. About 3-4 weeks ago, I was in Chicago with Dave Ferguson from Exponential, and we were in a meeting, and I just said, hey, man, send me your message like for this weekend. And he sent me his message, and I just ran logic and flow on it and gave him the feedback. And he said to me, he texted me the next day and was like, yo, that totally changed my message. It went from pretty good to, man, that's really good. He said that was uncanny what it did for me. I was like, that's what I want to hear. There's a whole nother analyzer on there called insider versus outsider language. And this thing is tremendous. If a 10-point scale, if a 1 is I was born in a pew, and in a 10 would be like I've never heard of a church, I don't even know what that is. It will grade your message for you and give you a number of like the language you're using. Will that register? How would that register on a 10-point scale? So a church that I used to work at recently I ran one of their messages, and this church prides themselves on existing for those who aren't here yet, right? They're all about like we're aiming at the outsider. So when I took their message and ran it and it got a 4 on the scale, I was like, hey, you may think that you're aiming for those who aren't here yet, but you might be aiming in the wrong direction. What do we do? Well, I just typed in, it says, well, what do you want it to be? And we put in a 7. And then all of a sudden it said, well, if you want to be a 7, here's all the ways that you need to change your talk to make sure that it's a 7. And it did great stuff like, hey, if you're going to do this, you can't assume people know who the Apostle Paul is. You have to explain that. So I would say it like this instead of like this. It said, if you want to be a disciple, well, some people may not even know what a disciple is. So you've got to explain that. Just reminding you of things that are just kind of we take for granted sometimes because we've been in this game for a long time, that outsiders may just not understand what that means, right? So ways to refine your message. And then on Saturday, Sunday, you're probably going to present that message. That's a really good thing. And then after that, you will have a video version of it. And so we're going to take that video version, we're going to pull it down off YouTube, or if you just have it, you can upload it directly to the site, which is actually preferable for us. And then from there, it will generate clips for you that you can use throughout the week. There's usually one 30-minute message gets you about 20 clips. And inside that, you can then edit those clips down to say, hey, you got it kind of generally right, but I want to narrow it down, a different in point, a different out point. I want to change the color of my font. I want to change the font exactly of the words that it puts up. All kinds of things that you can do inside that. If you guys have been paying any attention, that's gotten a pretty strong update in the last few weeks of like even more things you can do as our relationship and partnership with Opus has deepened. You guys get more out of that from that now. Now, the thing that's important as you're looking through that process of prep, refine, present, and then recap is that from a teaching standpoint, along the path, there are other things that it triggers in other people's jobs that help them do their job better. So when you've uploaded your outline on Monday, that's enough information for the comm team to really start building out their social media plan for the week. They can start saying, okay, if we're going to be talking about these things this weekend, it'll write all of their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It doesn't like X. You got to go with Twitter. It's smart. Or TikTok, like whatever you want to do, it'll write out all those pieces. You can even say include a carousel, or you can different things like that for Instagram, and it will do all of that and give you general ideas on what you want to say. Now, again, you're the final filter. You're going to always want to be the ones that say, I would say it this way, not that way. But all of us know it's a lot easier to edit something than it is to create something out of nothing. So in that process, just writing that out for you gives you a ton of helpful ideas. And so you can do all that and work all your way through that. You can also generate clips, and that will like help you with your social media posts as well. If you're in the discipleship world, most of what you're going to do, if it's message-based curriculum, most of that's going to happen after the message is ready for the weekend. So let's say Friday, Saturday, Donnie, who's a teaching pastor, and I'm looking at you, so I just pulled you out. Donnie is teaching. Well, he can send his manuscript on to his people, and they can generate all their small group leader curriculum right there for the weekend, so that when people are leaving church on Sunday, all the message-based curriculum is ready to go. You can also translate that into any language you want. So if you're in a space where you're like, man, we've got a bilingual scenario going on, great, we've got that for you. And so we'll generate that for you. You can also create a 5-day devotional. For those of you guys who are teaching and you say, man, I worked all week to get a 30-minute message done and I preached it twice, and then Monday hits and I got to do it all over again. And that can get exhausting. Well, on Monday, what if your Sunday message was just the beginning of a 5-day deepening relationship with God? Because what you talked about, we then give a daily devotion toward that topic that they can go through every day and start their morning off with it. And so it'll generate a 5-day devotional for you. It'll generate blog posts for you. And this is really, really important. And I used to think it wasn't. So let me tell you why it is. It's all about SEO. Okay. When you generate a blog post and you put it up next to your message, and you say like there's a resources option and things like that, when somebody types in I'm struggling with this or I'm struggling with this on Google, there's a far better chance that that's gonna reach you. It's going to reach your website, because now there's words related to your message that connect. So you want to run a blog post, you want to post it. It's a much better chance that somebody's going to reach those things for you. And then, we've talked about there's family and student ministries things before. And so my favorite part of that, which I'll show you in just a second, is this whole idea of the unified teaching plan that we've created, where if we want to take your message from the weekend and say, hey, I would love, this series is really important that our whole church is going through this series. And so I want to go ahead and create not only adult ministries curriculum, but children's ministry curriculum based around this topic. That used to be impossible, because I know all of you all probably get your message done a week ahead of time, but other pastors don't, right? So and so the children's ministry people are typically going, I can't write this, I got it on Saturday night, right? We understand that. So when things are ready, hopefully with our tools, you'll have things ready earlier, right? And then once you're done with that, you can generate a unified teaching plan. You can hit create children's ministry curriculum out of this, and in one click of a button, it will generate for you like the same message for the ears of an 8-year-old, but it wouldn't do a message that's 30 minutes long, because no 8-year-old's listening to that. And so what it does is it turns it into, here's an opening game that you would play. Here's some worship opportunities, the songs that would fit the theme, and here's why they'd fit. And then it can go from there and say, all right, here's the scripture that we're gonna do, and here's a retelling of that scripture and a lesson context for that. And here's some small group questions that you would do with that. And here's a craft that you could do. I mean, I don't even know if you could do all this in an hour, but it gives you way more stuff than you would even need. It then will generate a parent guide to go with that, so you can send that home with your kids, and parents now know, hey, I just heard something in the adult service. I'm not afraid to talk to my kid about it because I just heard it, and they even gave me a guide what they learned, which is similar to what I learned. Now families are having conversations. We've always realized that in ministry, that it's not that parents don't want to talk to their kids about Jesus, but it's an incredibly daunting task to somebody who feels like they may not know the answer to questions. So we're going to do everything we can to create opportunities for them to do just that. And then lastly, we create a volunteer prep guide that would be put in there, and you can send out to your volunteers early in the week to say, here's the core scripture we're going after. Here's some questions about how you're applying that to your life right now, so you're not teaching something that you're not actually living. And then a prayer for them to think through, to pray through as they're getting ready to teach this. So that's the unified teaching plan, and that's in there as well. So this is just a general feel for people to understand that as you do certain things in the teaching context, it triggers different things along the process for other people to be able to utilize and to work together as a group. Now that says one more thing for me. You want to add every person you can on your staff or key volunteers even onto your account on church.tech. I'm going to show you quickly how to do that, just in case you don't know. Um, and that is right here. If you're coming into church.tech and you look over at settings and you go to your organization and then you go to members, you can invite any members you want. Okay, right now there's two different kinds. There's a member and an admin. A member can see anything that's done. An admin can do things on the platform, and you want to add people to it. It doesn't cost anymore. That's all part of the plan. The goal is that you are all working together on this thing and knowing that one person can't do it all. Okay, so we want to add all these things here. All right, so that's that. I just talked nonstop for like a solid 18 minutes, which is, if Donnie knows me, so that's not hard to do. I do that a lot, but I'm just going to stop right now and ask questions, or ask you if you have any questions for all the things that I just said. And then I'm going to take you to the next stop.
I have a question,
Come
Donnie.
on, Dan.
On the members, you said admin and members, so the member is not able to do anything on the site, but the members are just there to observe, to look at what there's there. That's there.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
right. Because right now we have a 5 upload max per week. That's kind of how we govern.
Right.
Otherwise we could just be like, people just be uploading all the time, and
Yeah.
that's expensive. So we want to try to be careful on that, right?
Right.
But there are things that you might say, hey, you need to see what we're doing in pages. These are all things we've created for the week. So take a look at those things, and that's great. But we want to make sure that you don't get to the point where a bunch of people have used your uploads, and then the ones that you really have to use get
Yeah.
taken up, right?
Right. So the other question I had was about volunteers and getting those people involved. Could you kind of recap that a little bit as well? I mean, I heard that, but I just didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we want, I mean, as you work out all the things that you're trying to do in your church, I mean, if it's a large church, you might have staff and volunteers. If it's a smaller church, you may not have, it might be you and a bunch of volunteers, and that's wonderful. No matter what it is, we don't want you feeling like, man, I'm the only one who's on this platform and nobody else can use it. We want everybody else to use it alongside you. That's the goal of the whole thing, is this is kind of creates a team mentality, which I think was always the intent, right? It's just over time, we just get stuck and we start thinking, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do this, or I've got to pay somebody to do this, or I've got to do that. And so we want to create accounts for people, and you can do that. Just invite person, put their email address in, have them say yes. They get to come on under your all's, banner. And then you can create whether or not they're able to do things on the site, or whether or not they're just going to be able to see the things that are done on the site and give you feedback, things like that. But yeah, the goal would be you should add any, and we'll just say it like this, okay, with integrity, because we do know some people that have added people. Like there's been some times where we've seen different groups add other churches, and we've been like, hey, that hurts. Like that's expensive. So please don't do that. Like it's really meant to be what you're trying to do in your context, right? Let somebody else grab their own account, because our kids have to eat. So let's do that, right? So yeah, does that make sense? Any other questions? All right. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about, or I want to show you, is just kind of this in real time. Okay. So uh, I've got a friend named Matt Carter who hit me up on Friday of this week and said, "Hey, Don, I'm preaching at a church on Sunday. I've written my message, but uh, I don't have the conclusion ready yet. I need something figured out for the conclusion. Can you help me out?" And so I said, send what you got. So he sent me, you can see right here, this is what I uploaded. It's a manuscript, right? So here's video and here's manuscript. Um, so he sent me his message. I uploaded it. I went to the playground and I just said, based on the content that we've created so far, um, tell me some general ideas for the conclusion. Here, I just said, I'll tell you exactly what I said. It's right here. I said, I'm still trying to find a conclusion. I'm still trying to find a conclusion for this message. Give me some ideas on how to conclude the message. And it gave me stuff. So I made a page out of that. And then I sent it to Matt along with a bunch of other things that I did. And he was like, "Oh my goodness, this is gold. This is really helpful." And again, did he quote this perfectly? No, he's a genius. And so he's going to do better. But it just spurred some ideas on, yeah, that's a good idea. I should close that way. That's a good summary statement. I should do that. So here's the things that I ran for him. I ran the potential conclusion directions. Took that document, that pages document, and I went ahead and I said file, copy page URL, and then I just texted it to him. And he was like, "This is crazy," like really helpful, right? Um, then I went ahead and said, "All right, let's do more. Let's do some illustration ideas." And so I said, "Give me 10 illustrations on how I might close with an illustration," if he wanted to do that. I didn't know what he wanted to do. So it gave me sports stories, historical stories, business stories. And then I said, "Give me one that you would recommend for a conclusion of this, like a conclusion story." And so it said, "Bonhoeffer stand against Nazism. Here's the reason. Here's a summary. And here's even how I might say it." So it laid that out. Just another option, right? Maybe he didn't want to do that. Matter of fact, he didn't want to do that. He told me why later. He's like, "Oh, that might mess with my sermon," but he was like, "But it's really helpful still," right? Um, so it just kind of started messing with different things with it. And he was like, "Man, this is super helpful." So again, if you're in here and you've uploaded your manuscript and you said, "You know what? From here, I'm going to go to saved prompts and I'm going to create I want to look at different action steps that different people in my church might do to kind of take hold of this." Just run that prompt and it'll start going to work for you. And it'll start with like younger people and it'll take you all the way to, like older widowed people and things like that. Here's some ways that some action steps they could take. Are you going to say or post all of this? Probably not. It's really meant to inform you when you're writing your message. "Hey, I hadn't thought about that. That's a cool idea. Hey, that might actually even work for more than just young adults. That might work for single, whatever you want to do with it." But it's ways for you to start thinking about application in a way that you haven't thought before. Okay. So this is a tremendously helpful tool. You can do it another way too. You can come into the save prompts and come down to the bottom and there's a sermon writing application across the maturity spectrum. So now it's not about age group or demographic. It's about where are you with Jesus, right? So if you're a fully mature follower of Jesus, here's some key things that you might do. But if you're a skeptic and everything in between, it'll tell you what you might want to do differently. And that's tremendously helpful, right? So that will help people kind of go, "Oh yeah, when I'm writing this, I'm thinking about people," which is a really cool idea. Like we should do that. And so like here you go. It just kind of gets that into your mindset about what's going on there. So there's another one. I think personally, the insider versus outsider one it might be my favorite prompt we're working with right now, because it's just so helpful. So, oh, hold on. Sometimes when you go before it's done, it gives you fits. And sometimes it even makes me sign in again. Okay. So if you come into this and you say, "We're in the playground and I want to go to saved prompts," and then I go to insider versus outsider language, knowing Matt, this is probably going to be more of a 4 or a 5. And so it'll do an analysis for us. 1 fully insider, 10 outsider. All right, he's 4. It's good, solid Southern Baptist. And so let's say, hey, we want to make that a 7. And then from that, it'll say, well, here's the ways that I would modify your message so that it would be more open and understandable by outsiders. And so it'll take you through the whole thing and just give you lots of feedback. And the feedback's really helpful. It's not like, man, what are you doing? Or, it's just saying a lot of it is just don't assume that people know what you think they might know. Right. And it just reminds you of ways that you might have been saying stuff that people don't realize. And it'll tell you, hey, originally you said this, revise it. This is kind of how, well, this is what I mean when I'm saying change this to this. So like, you're not supposed to say it exactly like that, but you'll understand the meaning of why you would do that. So it's a really, really helpful tool. Okay. So we did that. Then he preached it. So I come back in and I loaded it back up and I said, okay, great. So now from here, this is the final piece that he was doing. So let's go in and go to pages and you'll see that we created a social media plan based off of this and kind of threw that out. And so here's Facebook posts for the week. Here's Instagram posts for the week. Here's Twitter posts for the week. Um, and so that's ready. I could then take that and anybody on my team, whether they're volunteer or paid, I could make sure that they can see it by going into here and clicking shared with organization and editable by organization. Then somebody else besides me can see it. If you don't have those clicked, they won't be able to see it. Okay. And that's really important for you to know, because if you want to write something, like if you're just working on your message, a lot of people are writing their message inside pages now and not even using an outside like word processor. And so they're writing them in there. If you don't want someone to see that until you're ready, you just don't turn it on so they can see it and you're good to go. But now I would save that and then I can send that off to people. I also created a 5-day devotional, all of our group guides for them. And just because I was showing them what they could do, I took a series graphic that wasn't their series graphic. I put it up here, but there's the sermon recap. Here's an icebreaker. And if you don't like the icebreaker, it's fine. You can just hit delete. And then you can just go to AI tools and hit icebreaker. And there's a new one. It'll just keep generating new ones. And when you like one, you just stay with it. Here's a question, the context of the question and the application to that question. How do I apply that to my life this week? What's the point of a group if you don't actually figure out how am I going to apply that change to my life this week, right? And then what we have right now, and a lot of you all who are beta testers have seen this. This is coming out like for everybody soon, but the editable area. And yes, we say editable area. We can't say that faster. It sounds like we're saying other things. And in that space right there, we can create a field where somebody on their phone can take notes, can write down what God's saying to them, do prayers. And so if you all were to open this and see it like this, then you would notice that it just says notes here. Then if you were to open it, it would link to their phone. They would have to verify that it's them through like enter your phone number, and then it sends you a 6-digit code, just like all those do. And then from that point forward, it will always link your phone to this Devo. And so you'll have it forever. Any notes you kept, they're all there. They're ready to go. And so that's a new piece that we actually have long-term vision for that's very different than just taking notes. The long-term vision for this would be if you're in a 5-day devotional and you have a field that says, write down what God is saying to you, or if you say, what prayer requests, what things are you praying about this week, and you're putting things in there, while it will always protect the anonymity of the person who's writing what they're writing, you will never know who said what, and not even exactly what was said. We are looking at creating insights for you so that you will always have a feel for how people are responding, which is basically like having a real-time focus group for you when you're thinking about sermon series ideas and you're saying, man, what do I need to teach about? Well, if you've got a whole lot of people that are writing prayer requests and what God is saying to me and different things like that are about my marriage, that are about parenting, that are different things like that, you need to do a series on that sometime soon. And so the goal would be that we're utilizing these fields in a way that informs you of what's going on in the lives of the people that God has entrusted to you. And so that you have a better opportunity to speak directly to them without, and this is important, without ever violating their privacy, because we will never let you see who said what exactly. That's not fair, right? So we won't do that. But We could use it as a tool. Okay. So here's an example of that. Then we went ahead and went into clips, and we ran all of Matt's clips, and there's about 20 of them. Okay. As you're in here, that you can pick which ones you want. You'll never use 20 clips in a week. If you do, don't do that. Okay. But you'll find the one that fits you really well. And you're like, hey, I think this would go well. But you know what? It's in that fill, and I want to use fit instead. So I'll hit edit. And this is some of the new updated, more Opus related relationship stuff that we've got going on right now, where now you can come in here, hit this button, choose fill. I can move this here. I can go ahead and it'll break it actually into multiple scenes. So I can actually move it from fit to fill and back and forth if you want to, different things throughout the scenes. I can go into design and I can change if I want this to be 1 line or if I want it to be 3 lines max. I can talk about how if it wants to have an effect that comes on, which those are cool for about a minute. And then they get kind of not cool anymore. But like there's that. I can change all the fonts, and there's a lot more fonts to use than I used to be able to use. I can change font colors, all of the stuff that I can use in these clips. I can go ahead and have ready to go, hit save and compile, and it will re-render those for me. I can download that. I can upload that, and off I go. I say this all the time. When I used to be an XP at a fairly large church in the Raleigh area, and I had a comm team of about 7 people. One of the people on that team, half their week was dedicated to going through the message, finding clips that work really well, cutting them up, adding lower third graphics to them, and like all of the text to them, and getting that ready to go. It took them 2 to 3 days to do that. What I do that in 15 minutes now. Okay. Now, the first thought somebody has whenever I tell them that is they go, so does that person get fired? No, that person got repurposed to do things that only they could do, like work with people, right? Like the reason why we probably got into ministry in the first place. And so we find different ways to utilize people's strengths and don't necessarily create a situation where they're doing things that we can just do quicker. We've always done that. That's technology throughout the years has always been that. So those are some examples of how I took a message both before the sermon and after the sermon to fill out options in the 9-day work week. We created a 5-day devotional. We created a small group curriculum. After we did all that, because Matt was guest speaking at this church in Boston when he did this, and the lead pastor yesterday of that church called me and said, "Can you show me how he did that?" And I was like, sure. And I took them all the way through it, and they got on the platform last night because they were like, that's ridiculous. So this is just how it works. People start seeing all the different ways that they can take their team and utilize them in different ways, and it just becomes a thing that we do. So my next stop of my long oration is now done, and you guys can ask me questions about that. And Sarah, if you've seen good questions in the chat, please just tell me, because I haven't read a single one yet. So
Just one that came in that said, can we talk about the Pages tab? And
about the Pages tab?
yeah, and maybe
Yeah, absolutely.
one that while you're navigating there, one earlier asking about where to find all of those awesome prep tools that you were talking about earlier. And
Yeah. Okay. Great. Awesome.
in the playground. Yeah. So
yeah. So there's 2 different sections. One of the things I want to, and Sarah can attest to this, we both kind of, I think we agree on this. I take CHURCH.tech right now, and I picture it as like that like house that somebody built that then got an extension built, and then they got another extension built, and then they got another one, and you're like, that house looks kind of weird. Okay. Like there's things everywhere on the platform, and we are very aware of that. If you guys were on the last training days, we actually gave you a preview of what V2, we call it V2, like version 2 of our user interface is, where basically things will make a lot more sense. Okay. Right now, if you want to find things on the platform, we are aware it's sometimes cumbersome to figure out how to get from this one. Okay, is this one a ministry tool? Is this one in Pages? What is this one in the playground? Like, what is all of that? We totally get it. We know that as well. Here's the rules that you should think about. The playground is right now, from the time you upload a sermon, it's going to do stuff with that sermon that you can then take further. So small group curriculum, because it's done with the sermon. Okay. Like it's going to be message based. So you're going to take that. The 5-day devotional, that's going to all be done on the playground, because that's going to take the sermon and go further. Ministry tools is not necessarily linked to an upload. Okay. They're just tools that we have thought about all the way through and said, this would be helpful. Hey, this might be helpful too. I do a lot of consulting for churches. And Doug, our lead prompt writer, does as well. And so we just are always thinking, hey, that'd be helpful. Let's give that a shot. Oh, hey, that'd be helpful. Let's give that a shot. So as we kind of have like this, I don't know, it's just kind of nice to be able to do both of those things at the same time. And so when you're in here, if you're in church.tech and you want to see the ministry tool section, just know this. If you're not a beta tester, and a lot of the people that come to regularly come to training days are, you probably can't see this right now. Okay. This is supposed to go live for everybody in the next week or so. So I want you to just be aware of that. So it's like, oh, it's frustrating. You're talking about something I can't even see. I get it. It's just there's some bugs that we're still trying to work out. If you're a beta tester, you can see this right now. Okay. But inside ministry tools, we have tools for communication, preaching, devotionals, marketing. And so inside here, let's take the preaching. You said, how do I do all of those different things? So here's the New Testament word study. Here's an Old Testament word study. And I'll show you what that can look like in a minute because I've run a couple of them. But if you go to the preaching tab, these are all different things you can do to help build out your sermon before you've ever got it ready. Like this find an illustration tool is actually a little more robust than the one we do in the playground, because inside of it, you can say, like, here's my audience, here's my scripture or my topic, here's the tone that I want the illustration to take. Is it more of a challenging? Is it more fun? What is it? So you can write something in there. And then I can go from history, sports, science, art, technology. Like I can click off different things I want it to pull from, and how long does the illustration need to be? Which, sometimes they can just go a while. So we want to like get them a little bit, how concise can I make this? So we would run all this, you'd pull it out and it will write for you out some illustration options for you. So really, really helpful. Find a quote. I mean, same concept, right? So here's my audience, here's the scripture I'm going after, here's the tone. It'll just go look for quotes from people like reputable people that might have said something that you can go, oh, that actually fits really well. I want to bring that in and help deepen my message. So there's all kinds of stuff. There's even one in here that I always miss it. So it's about, come on now. Okay. So commentary summaries on a topic or a text. So if you come in here and you say, here's my topic and here's the summary, or here's the commentary I want to look at. These are all open source ones. So you can get, we can't have it do ones that would cost money, that would we get sued. Okay. So, but these ones are all available. So if you just want to look and say, all right, John, let's go with Chuck Smith's commentaries. I don't know. Let's just do it on Matthew 5:1-13. It will write for you a summary of what his commentary would have said about that passage for you. And so you'll have that. And I'll, so here's another one that I did while it's generating that one. So Spurgeon, overview of 5-13. Here's the topics, call to righteousness. So it just takes you all the way through it in ways for you to see what his commentary would have said about that. This is quite helpful. So yeah, ministry tools is phenomenal. It's an incredible tool and it's growing all of the time. We are actually working on some partnerships with Carey Nieuwhof, where we're going to write some very specific Carey Nieuwhof ministry tools that will like kind of take his workflows and his ideas, and we just kind of put legs on them and just say, all right, Carey, here's a bunch of ones that he says. So let's go that way. And so really, really helpful that way as well. And all the way in between. So definitely look around there. Okay. Now, if you're on the other side, Sarah, and they were talking about, hey, where's that come from a Pages standpoint? Pages is your repository for every single thing that you're doing on this message this week. In this, whenever you make something, it will store here. Okay. And you can choose if your whole organization can see it, or if they can't. Okay. It's right here. But inside of Playground, if you went to Playground and said, hey, I want to run something, I'll go to a saved prompt and I'm going to create something here. I don't know, let's make one. Let's just make sermon slides and hit that. It will generate sermon slides based off of your message, things that it feels like you should use as a sermon slide. And then you can make a page out of that. And inside that page, you then can send that to everybody. Sarah, do you think that makes sense to kind of answer those questions? So like this one's ready to
Yeah.
go. I would hit play here. I would hit sermon slides. Yeah, I already typed it once. Create page. And there you go. So now it's in there now. Okay. And then so here's what they are. And then if I like them and I feel like they're right, I can just take this URL, send it to whoever's making my stuff in ProPresenter or the different things they're making it, and say, here's my sermon slides. Go for it. And then they've got it.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it did help answer that question. Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool. Hey, I know we don't have a lot of time left, and I really want to do this. John Kelly is a very good friend of mine. And we've been friends for, I don't know, like 30 years or something. And John's church uses this platform. So I thought it'd be helpful for you all to hear from a church. You guys are running around 700, I believe, on the weekend. So kind of a size that everybody can relate to in there. John, tell me the 5 ways that you feel like, man, these are the top 5 ways we use church.tech every week.
Well, obviously we use it for our small groups. We use it for the small group questions and for our leader guides and all of that. That was kind of the big thing when we started using this a year ago. That was really the main reason we got it, was to do that. But then we started playing in the playground and trying to break it. And we found out there were a lot of things we could do. And so we actually started getting to the point where we send out a Monday recap email to everybody in our church. So we got into the playground, created a prompt, and now every Monday we send out a follow-up email about what happened over the weekend that goes a rundown of what was talked about in the message, gives some personal questions for people to be asking throughout the week, a memory verse for the church to remember to do for the week, that kind of thing. And then we also do a preview email. We figured that was fun. Let's try a preview email. So now we do a preview email before the weekend, so that we can also send that out so people can prepare for the message, giving the text that we're going to be going over so people can read that and be prepared as they come for the sermon on Sunday. Obviously,
can you show us those prompts, Josh?
Yeah, I can show this to you. Let me, I'm going to try and share. I'm not the greatest on Zoom, but I'll figure it out here real quick.
I believe in you, man.
I appreciate you, man.
Boom. There you go. See, just like that.
So I asked our senior minister, John, if he would go ahead and just upload whatever he had from his manuscript. And so he went ahead and did that. And I went ahead and ran some prompts, and I'll show you how we came to them. But we literally just go to the playground, and I can't remember which one of these Wednesdays it was that you guys had where you were explaining how prompts work. And I just kind of paid attention to what your guy was doing, and we created 4 prompts that we use ourselves.
Okay, pause for a second. Guys, when I was earlier talking about saved prompts, I was talking about church.tech saved prompts and the ones that we've made. But John's highlighting a great idea here, is that in the custom area, those are prompts that you can make yourself. So if you have a workflow every week, like John's saying they do, they just made their own prompt. And now when they go in, they just click on it because it's ready to go.
Right. Yeah. And so like we'll start with just the follow-up email. We created the prompt there. We hit that, and then it just starts populating that for us. Now, obviously we go in, we do some edits and things like that on them because, you know, it's still AI. So it doesn't always have the most personal touch when you get done with it. So we go in and we kind of check a few things. As you can see, it's got, as you reflect on the message, consider these questions, memory verse for the week, some challenges for the week, all of that stuff in there. We found a lot of people really enjoy that. One of the things we learned, and the reason why we started doing these, is because we realized that for a lot of people, if you ask somebody on Tuesday or Wednesday what the sermon was about on Sunday, it's amazing how many people can't tell you what was preached on Sunday. And so we're trying to create a workflow.
No offense to the teaching pastors in the room. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm one of them. But you know, it's one of those things where we realize we want to make some tools for people to remember what was talked about on Sunday throughout the week. You know, and so our small groups is part of that, but also sending out these emailers and things like that have also helped with that. Another thing we're trying to figure out, and we've used your all's prompt for it, and we've created our own, is a sermon outline that people can have during the message. We've tried to take advantage of the editables that you guys have created, and
that's great,
and make our own outlines where people can leave notes and stuff in those. And we're still we haven't gone official on those yet, but we're getting ready to, just
So what
because
you're
we want
saying
to
is
make sure
like
it's
you'll run them
exactly how we
each
want it.
weekend, but you don't necessarily send them out there, but you're still trying to lock them in before they're ready to go.
Right. And
Cool.
a lot of what I've learned with church.tech is just play with it and mess with it until it works on a lot of the things.
Yep.
And if you don't like the way something works, just keep playing with it because it eventually figures it out. I've gotten into arguments actually with the playground at times.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So it's been fun doing that. And then one of the other things that we do is we obviously do the clips. There's obviously no clips on this because of
It's a manuscript.
the fact that it's a manuscript.
That's right.
But we send out social media clips throughout the week, and we send those usually on Instagram and Facebook. We don't have a lot of Twitter users in our church, so most of our stuff is going to be through clips that we use on the other platforms. We don't really use Twitter or X or anything like that. So it's all Facebook, Instagram. And really it's become a workflow for us because we know Monday we're going to upload the sermon video. We're going to send out the follow-up video or follow-up email. We know that on Wednesday we're going to be sending a preview video or a preview emailer. We know that the group questions are usually out on Friday for the next week, so that people who are in groups, if they want to go to the message and actually bring the questions with them or have them on their phone, they can be listening to the sermon intently for what they're going to be talking about in their community groups. And so everything we do is really just setting it up so that Sunday mornings matter for the whole week.
That's good, man.
We kind of go by the concept of we want to keep the conversation going that started on Sunday throughout the week.
I love that. John, would you do something for me real quick? I'm going to ask them a question while I'm have you prep this. The one that you did that was your version of the outline. Can you copy that URL and paste it into a tab of like, so people can see what that would look like where it says notes and not just the editable section? And while he does that, I'd like you all who are still here, just if you've got any questions for John or comments on things, go ahead and fire. What do you got? Okay, John's thrown he's thrown that page into our chat. So if you wanted to look at what their outline, the fill in the blanks outline looks like when they're using the notes section, it's in there now. But any questions about what John just said, or any comments, questions for me, questions for Sarah?
One thing that I asked for John is that section where you talked about the follow-up, the email, those prompts, those custom prompts and such. It looked like that one prompt was really, really written out detailed wise. So basically, apparently they played with it a lot.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, if anybody wants them, we're not hanging on to them with, clenched fists.
They're not
we're
proprietary.
To share that stuff. Yeah. We'll share that stuff if anybody wants to use them. That's no big deal.
And that's worth saying. Okay. So here's the deal. So you're going to make a save prompt and you're going to have a prompt in there. And then you're going to want to tweak that prompt over time and then just update that saved prompt. And over time, it's probably going to grow in what it's asking. And that's a good thing, right? So you want to get it more dialed in and more dialed in and more dialed in. That's great. Okay. So yeah. And then of course, by all means, share. Matter of fact, at some point in time, our goal is to have a bit more of a community group scenario where you can say, not only share with my group, but share with everybody on church.tech. So somebody can look through and say, man, that's a good idea. Half of what we learn about church.tech, especially in the playground, is it's not that people didn't know it could do that. People don't know what to ask for it to do. Like they're like, wait, what? I hadn't even thought about that before. And so when you see somebody else's prompt, you go, oh, that's a great idea. I just never thought of it. So that's a cool thing. Yeah, John, if you want to share that, you know what, John, I would encourage you to do it this way. Share it on the Insiders group on Facebook.
Okay.
See, now y'all have to join it. But do that, and that'd be really helpful. Any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, John, I just want to ask you, when you started creating that sermon outline for the congregation, you built that yourself, or was it a line item in pages that you that was already there, or did you build it off of something else that was there?
Well, I think it got brought up in one of the Wednesday Zoom calls, and so that day I had a free afternoon, so I was like, I'm just gonna play with this until I figure it out. And so I just started typing prompts and playing with it until we got something that looked usable for us. And of course, we had to put the editables. Man, that's hard to say, Don.
I know, right? Everybody's just thinking that we're handing out weed gummies. Sorry,
but no, that's fine. We had to add those in after after the prompts, I couldn't figure out how to make those available doing a prompt. So we would import that into Pages, and then we put the editables in everywhere where there was a blank space. So
yeah, I would say for all of you on here that don't remember when I had Doug. Doug Foltz is our lead prompt writer, and he gave us like a best practices on how to write quality prompts. I'm gonna say it's probably 2 to 3 training days ago. If you go into the Facebook Insiders group, they're all posted. Okay, go in there and rewatch that one. It'll help you with some really great ideas on how to create good prompts. I mean, there's degrees in this now, y'all. Like our kids are going to college, and this is like a major for them. Like and this is the future for people. So how to write good prompts. So yeah, so go back and rewatch that one. That's a good one to have in there. But yeah, John, I mean, like you said something great, right? So you would go into the playground, you would get that prompt, it would then create that in the playground in that green bubble that you see right there. And in the bottom left-hand corner, it says create a page. That'll make a page out of it. Then you can edit that page down. So you can space things out and then put an editable in that space. So that's a notes section there, or you can put it, in different places so that you can see all that. So like my gut says like you said, over time, you kind of tweak that down. Now it's feeling pretty good. And
it's getting close anyways. Yeah,
it's getting
close.
closer.
We're still working it out and trying to make it work right. But that video with Doug was awesome. I would say if you haven't watched it, definitely watch it, but also look at his screen because his tabs are showing. You can see where he gets tints and stuff from. And so I actually looked at the tabs on his Internet Explorer thing or his Safari. And I went and found those websites that I saw on those tabs, and that helped a lot too. So,
brilliant,
little insider thing there for you that
there you
maybe you
go.
didn't know before.
So this is why you come to training days, y'all. Okay. Any more questions? If not, I have a question for Sarah, but I want to see if there's any more questions out there. Okay, Sarah, what I wanted to ask you, have you seen any in the chat that we haven't addressed?
Only just I was getting ready to write a little response. In terms of after this meeting, the recording will be posted to the Insiders Facebook group page, and the 9-day work week document you saw on the earlier side of this meeting will be posted there as well.
Yep.
I think that is it that I'm seeing. Otherwise, I'm trying to reply to as many folks as I can, as quickly as I can. So
that's amazing.
yeah.
Thank you. The other question I have for you is there anything going on right now on the platform that while you have a captive audience that you're like, hey, this question's come up a lot, or this question's come up a lot, that you just feel like, hey, let me just tell you about this?
There is one, and it's just more of a functionality thing. In terms of when you're creating a new page, and you want someone else on your team to be able to work on it, you do need to share it with the organization for them to be able to work on it too. Otherwise, it will just say, you can't edit this.
Let me go ahead and show you how to do that.
Yeah, so you may see it in your activity feed. Everybody can see in the activity feed, oh gosh, it looks like somebody on my team did make a page. I click on it and it says I can't edit it.
Yeah.
John's going to show you exactly how to do
Josh
that.
and I were doing a big, like for a whole network not too long ago, a big presentation. And I went into Pages and didn't see anything in here. And so he's speaking and I'm typing furiously like, oh no, he didn't make a group guide. We got to get all this ready to go. What do we do? And then I was like, Josh, I got it ready to go. And he's like, no, I've got it ready to go. And we realized that he didn't come right here and make it shareable and editable. That's a key, right? So you've got to, when you make something, you hit those 3 dots. Those 3 dots are great for 2 things. Okay. That they're more than 2 things, but these are the 2 that I like the most. If you take this image, you can pull like your artwork and it just makes the piece look that much better when you text it out. And then these page permissions, they're shared with the organization and they're editable by the organization. Everybody can see it, but you may not allow them to actually do anything to it. Like for instance, if you're sharing your sermon, you may be like, hey, hands off. I don't need you to like change words and stuff like that. So yeah, so you've got both of those. Hit save on that, and now it'll pop up in everybody's feed.
There we go. That would be my biggest, we're working on making some more organizational, hopefully features where you can just say, I want it to always be shared across my organization, things like that. But those features are coming. But just wanted to make that note as I've seen a few questions come in about that lately. So yeah, thanks, Don. Thanks for throwing
All
it
right,
out.
everybody.
101,
That's it.
so.
This is your last chance. Oh, I'm sorry, Kelvin Clark. How will you get to see this? Like Sarah said, when this gets done, it takes a little while for Zoom to compile it. And so we'll take that by basically usually around 5 today in the Facebook Insiders group. It'll be uploaded there and it'll say, hey, this is up, and you can watch it again and again and again if you want to. I apologize because that's a lot of me talking if you watch it again and again and again. But it's there. Do what you want with it. Any other questions? Let's see here.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Remember, this fills up fast. So right now, click on the Training Days link. I will go ahead and put it in the, let's see here in my helpful links. I'll put it in the chat just one more time. Right now, go. And in 2 weeks, we will see you again and we will do this again. We'd love to have you there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.